on this week, we are going to talk about the final rule of writing by Robert Heinlein, which is...
Well, rule 4 is you must put your story on the market. And then rule 5 is you must keep it on the market until it has sold.
All right, we'll get into that in a second. But before, if you haven't purchased Bookworms, the Valentine's Day issue, it is available. The Etsy link is in the show notes. And I liked what you did on your video. And there's a YouTube channel called Regina's Haunted Library, also in the show notes. But on that, you did the Gothic, the first two books of the Gothic Hearts thing. But you brought up you had all 4 of the Bookworms.
Mm-hmm.
They do look really good together.
They do look great together.
And I was thinking on the way, I was taking my dog to the groomer and I was coming back and I'm thinking, we could have digital downloads of these. But no, I don't want to. And I know we've decided this is not the thing. But I hope people who have purchased the ones that have sold out are keeping them nice.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking eventually you could trade them with someone if you wanted to, or let's just say someone ends up doing really well and their earlier stuff is in Bookworms.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be something of a collector's item. And I like that about it. You know me. Too. I'm a nerd collector.
I know.
And that really makes me excited when we talk about Bookworms being limited and you can only get these while they're out. And like I said, it's not like it's hard for us to put them out as digital downloads.
No.
And we could make more money that way. But we're learning.
And we may do a digest down the road.
Yeah, down the road. But I'm talking about the actual physical copies of these.
Oh, yeah.
Once they're gone, they're gone. So pick up that Valentine's Day one because that's going to be our first one of Valentine's Day, which will be another thing, the very first Valentine's Day episode or issue, which is really cool.
Very cool. And, it's like what you were talking about before we started recording, the thrill of finding that signed rare copy of something in a thrift store.
Yeah.
There is that sense of there aren't a lot of bookworms out there. So if you get one, you get one. It's a good feeling.
It is. Now, I just brought up YouTube. You did your Gothic Hearts. I guess I like that. Explain why there is a bingo card, which I thought was really cool, and how you check them off. So explain that about.
Oh, the bingo card. I didn't invent the bingo card. I don't know who came up with that. That's been something that's been floating around in BookTube for a while. But basically, it's a bingo card with all the different challenges listed on it, plus other things that might overlap. And as you read, you can just cross it off, and it gives a feeling of satisfaction. And then if you hit bingo, you don't really get a prize, but you get a good feeling about it. But it's just fun. It makes it kind of fun for the participants. And I just uploaded another video yesterday for Valentine's Day. So I'm continuing with my Gothic reading. And I also did some writing. I actually submitted a story for an anthology this morning.
Excellent.
Yeah. I got inspired by Heinlein's rules.
I know. They are definitely inspiring. They inspire me. I don't think I have anything new up on YouTube, but I will be doing something soon, I'm sure.
I like your YouTube videos, so I want you to keep doing them. I shared your last one.
And then Instagram, we're at Worms Horror Zine.
And I'm taking an Instagram break.
Yeah, you're taking a break from social media for Lent. I saw that.
Well, just not YouTube, just Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, they're both the same company. So you're taking a break from Meta.
Yes.
The Meta break.
Breaking the chains from Meta.
Well, I will be still on the Bookworms one. I mean, literally, the only thing I've been doing on my personal one is scanning photos of my family.
I know, I like those pictures.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that. My cousin, so my Aunt Dot just died maybe a month ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so the cousins are going through all this stuff, and they're giving me like all the photos and things to document everything. So I'm going through scanning, and I'm going to be getting slides soon. But I did find at the thrift store, and I've been posting these, I found a bunch of slides that somebody must have put away. Like, I guess it was in the carousel at the thrift store, and they had the slides, so I bought it. like a couple bucks. And so I'm going
Yeah.
through and I'm scanning the slides, and it looks like somebody's trip to Israel. And
Okay.
so I'm posting those, which is a lot of fun because it's like a mystery. What's on this slide?
But that sounds like that could be the start of a mystery,
Yeah.
like a murder
Well,
mystery.
I always
What's
like that.
on the slides.
The idea of finding some kind of negative or some photo that is part of something
Right. I
that
know.
starts a whole line of a story. Great stuff. So if anybody's
Mhm.
listening and wants to experiment with that kind of story, that would be a fun little project.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Carney,
Yeah. Carney's still going strong.
did you see Cameron's
Yes.
Cheney's what I love the title. Let's see if I can find it. So it says, when you're an innocent little horror reader and your horror book gets unexpectedly steamy.
Yeah.
And it's got a nice little thumbnail of Cameron sitting there reading Carney.
Yeah, he said he loved it. So
And
hopefully, you know.
yeah,
it wasn't
definitely
too
like
painful.
it gets steamy.
Yeah, I mean, people are a bit divided on it. I had someone sent me a message on Facebook. It said, more horror, less soft porn, please. So I was like, okay, it's not for
F
everybody.
you.
Yeah, I didn't respond.
I
but
don't
there you go.
understand. First of all, what gives that
Didn't
person
horror
the right
used to
to
be-
tell you what to do?
I know, but didn't horror used to be kind of steamy?
Oh,
and-
I complain about that all the time. Nothing aggravates me more than somebody dictating what an artist should do.
I agree. I'm 100%
Like,
with you on
you
that.
could say, you know what, I didn't like it. And it could be, I'm not really into the sex stuff.
Mhm.
Other than that, I thought it was really good. That's different than saying, hey, next time you write a book, less this and more that. Fuck you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see why. I can see where someone, and I've been this way too, where it's like, well, this isn't really to my taste, but it's another thing to dictate, like you said, how someone should write. And I find that more. Maybe that's why I'm taking a break from social media as well. I do find there's a lot of that online in the bookish community, and I think it's bad.
If you like this podcast, please give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're listening to, and that would be wonderful. We would love to see that.
We would love to see that.
So let's talk about the 5th rule, and it's basically when you bring yourself to market, keep trying to get it sold.
Right, you must keep it on the market until it has sold.
This
And
is
I mean, I'd like to, well, go ahead, but I wanted to quote from this article again.
yeah, why don't you do that first? Yeah.
Okay. So this is again, same as last year. This is called On Writing by Robert J. Sawyer, copyright 1996, and it's on the science fiction writer website. Make sure I give him credit. So here we go. It's a fact. Work gets rejected all the time. And certainly your first submission will be rejected. Don't let that stop you. I've currently got 142 rejection slips in my files. Every professional writer I know has stacks of them. The prolific Canadian horror writer Ido van Belkom does a great talk at science fiction conventions called Thriving on Rejection, in which he reads samples from the many he's acquired over the years. And it goes on a bit, which I can go back to it and read a little more, but I think that that's pretty fair. I don't send out that many submissions, but most of them have been rejected, I have to say.
And
How
this
about you?
rule is all about perseverance.
Absolutely.
I think I would love to challenge anyone, like a little mind test right now. Imagine getting rejected for the next 5 years. You work hard for the next 5 years and you get nothing but rejections. Will you continue to do this? Like, does that sway you from wanting to write?
That's a good question.
If it does, then I really think you should question if you want to be doing this for publication, because it may take you 5 years, it may take you 10. It may never happen. And then you have to decide, what is it that you're doing? Like, why are you doing this? And, just to go with a classic story of rejections, that Stephen King had a big nail that he had on his wall.
Right.
And he like filled it up with rejections and had to get a bigger nail. Like, he got rejected a lot.
Yeah.
And that's just a classic tale. But this is the same everywhere.
Yes, and it's not really a reflection of the quality of your work necessarily. I think there are so many elements involved. Mostly, it's just highly competitive. So you're competing with many stories for just a few slots. And I was saying I sent out a story this morning for an anthology. It was actually the one that you and I discussed a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you sent your story in yet. I know you were
Which one?
the clown
Wow,
one.
you sent it in already?
Yeah, sorry.
Wow. No, I
What
mean,
did you?
this is not a competition of like
No,
who
it's not
can
a
get it
company. You're
in
meeting the
first.
deadline. The deadline's coming up it's April 1st.
April. So you still got all of February and March. Write another one. They can take two.
Oh gosh, I just wanted to get that out of me. But I was looking at that and saw that 70% of that anthology is an invite, which is pretty much the standard, and then 30% for submissions. So you're competing. I'm also competing against you when you send your story in, and only of the 30% that's left. So it's not a reflection. And I don't expect that story to get accepted. I mean, I should think positively and do like The Secret and
Yeah, let's do
imagine.
that. Let's all
Yeah,
think.
imagine both of our stories in
Yes,
that
we
anthology.
both get accepted.
We both get accepted. But I guess I do that trick with myself. You don't want to get up your hopes. If I got accepted, it would be a pleasant surprise. But if not, I'd be like, it happens. Sometimes I've been surprised about when some of my stories got rejected, but you know,
Well, let me ask you this, because this is what the rule is about. Let's say you wrote this story, you send it in, it gets rejected. The rule is you keep submitting it until it gets sold. Are you
right.
going to
So,
do that?
well, this is what this guy says about that. If the rejection note contains advice you think is good, revise the story and send it out again, which kind of refutes the other rule, but maybe not. If not, then simply turn the story around, pop it in the mail. This is back in the 90s, sending it to another market. Keep at it. My own record for the maximum number of submissions before selling a story is 18. But the story did eventually find a good home. And within days, I sold it again to a reprint only anthology. Getting a story in print the first time opens up whole new markets. Well, that's interesting. He put that in parentheses. So once your story's been accepted, like with Stephen King, perhaps he had all those rejections. Once he had one published, then it got the ball rolling.
Yeah. And
then, well, he adds here, if your story is rejected, send it out that very same day to another market. In other words, get back on the horse. Don't get too worried about it.
yeah, and I don't think it contradicts the earlier rule, because the earlier rule is do not revise except for editorial demand.
Okay, so that's
So
kind of an
that could be
editorial
considered
demand.
that.
Yeah.
If somebody sends something back and says, hey, we really like this, but we think that here's some changes, that could fit into that rule.
Yeah. And then he just adds here the last thing, a still of our 6 remaining writers, because in his article, each rule eliminated more. 3 will be so discouraged by that first rejection that they'll give up writing for good. But 3 more will keep at it.
Yeah.
So how many writers, really excellent writers, have we lost because, not that they died, but whose work we lost because they got discouraged?
Rejection's just part of it. And I think we need to think of it like a job. And I think if you actually want it, and again, I get this, if you're working full time, it's very hard.
Yeah.
But find whatever time you have and make that like your office time where you can't be disturbed and you work. And then if you send something out and it comes back, you're like, okay. I love what you said earlier from that guy, that article you read, that the story eventually found its home.
Yes.
Kind of like that. Kind of
I
like,
like that.
adopting a pet.
Yeah,
You
it
don't
wasn't right for that place, but it could be right somewhere else.
Yeah, it's really hard to separate your brain. But if you thought of your part of your brain that does the submissions as an assistant.
That's a good analogy.
Like,
Very
what if
good.
you were an assistant to a writer? And all your job was to submit things And if it gets rejected, I need you to submit it to someone else. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
like
the instructions from the writer is.
you're the secretary.
Yes.
Well, those are the different hats a creative person wears. So when you do send out that, like I sent out my story this morning, and because I've been doing this for years now, I don't get as emotionally attached to it as I used to. Where it's like this would be that rejection or acceptance would be a rejection or acceptance of me. No, it's my story, and I'm separate from that. It's not any kind of judgment on me as a person, or whether I should be an artist or not. So I think we sometimes get, I mean, I didn't really experience that as a writer, but because I was older, but when I was when I was really young, I was going out for auditions as an actress. And I remember getting very like upset when I was rejected because it felt like they were rejecting me, you know. And it takes a while to develop a thicker skin when it comes to that stuff. It's like, okay, I sent it out. I have actually 2 stories now that are out. I'm waiting to hear back from. So who knows? I might be upset, but I doubt it if I'll be that upset. Because I
Yeah.
know the
And
reality. As an editor of Bookworms, I see the other side, like I've said before, and I know it's not personal.
I think you can't allow yourself, when it comes to this rule, you cannot allow yourself, well, some people argue this, but you cannot allow yourself the time to get upset. If it comes back and is rejected, that's why they're saying the same day, send it back out. Don't give it
Right.
time. Now, some people argue have a mourning period if you need to, but make it
A very short mourning
and
period.
and have a time. Like, okay, for 2 hours today, I'm going to be sad that my story got rejected. And after that, I'm done with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. If you can do that, that's good. But I think what happens sometimes is there's a lot of emotional weight uh, in this activity of sending something out because especially if it's the first time you've ever done it, and you might be scared or thinking that, oh, I'm making a fool out of myself. This sucks.
Everybody will get rejected. And this rule is not about getting rejected.
No.
This rule is about you just keep putting it out there until it gets sold. And
Yes.
I have a new thing I'm going to attempt is having a specific day of the week that I work on older short stories,
Okay.
revising them to what I feel they are their best, and then sending them out until they get sold. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do like Mondays. I will work on a story until it gets to my satisfaction. And then I'm going to put them out and just do what this rule is about. Because I have a lot of them that are just done and they might need to just be tweaked, or they might not need to be tweaked. But I want to see if I
Yeah.
can send them out until
I
they
think
get
that's
sold.
good. I have some up in my attic. I have some before the internet, some typed and even handwritten short stories of mine that I maybe should pull out if I have the courage and dust them off and see where my mind was at when I was, 18, 19 years old. Kind of fun.
That
I'm
would be
sure it was a
fun.
lot more serious than I am now. But yeah, and then if you want, there's this rule 6 that this guy has added.
Okay.
So
Let's
you
hear
can
it.
take a look. Uh, Start working on something else. That's my own rule, he writes. I've seen too many beginning writers labor for years over a single story or novel. As soon as you finish one piece, start on another. Don't wait for the first story to come back from the editor you've submitted it to. Get to work on the next project. And if you find you're experiencing writer's block on your current project, begin writing something new. A real writer can always write something. That's interesting. That's a challenge. You must produce a body of work to count yourself as a real working pro. And then his last thoughts on this whole thing is of our original 100 wannabe writers, only 1 or 2 will follow all 6 rules. The question is, will you be one of them?
Yeah.
I hope so, because if you have at least a modicum of talent and if you live by these 6 rules, you will make it. That's a great idea. I love this idea of being a real writer. I think that's a challenge. And I actually applaud that. I'm not saying they're a real writer artist and unreal, but it's like to be a writer, you have to be writing.
Yes. And if we go back to the analogy of it's your day job, even if you're working part time, if you go into the office, you have to be working, right? Like you have to
Mhm.
be doing something, right? So if you send something out, you don't go in the next day to work just to sit there and wait. You work on the
Right.
next thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's working continuously on something, wearing different hats, right? And just doing the job when you sit down in front of your typewriter or your computer.
Right. Because we all play different roles in our lives. And when we're cooking, we're the cook. And when we're cleaning, we're the maid, if you want to put it that way, or if we're whatever we do, the chauffeur, all the different tasks that we do in our life, we can approach writing the same way. I when I do my creative mode, which is usually in very early in the morning, I'm in a different place mentally than later in the day when I've got a whole list of things I need to do. And maybe that's a good time to send out a story or to check on keep I keep a writing journal, just kind of seeing what I did that day and checking things off the list or whatever it is, going to the post office. And that's a feeling of satisfaction to do that too. So it doesn't have to be all this doom and gloom around the rejection. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, okay, now I have never gotten a nasty rejection letter. Have you?
No.
Okay. So I think that the fear is more internal because I think the fear becomes like, oh, someone I'm going to expose myself as a fraud, as a charlatan. I can't write. I suck. And then maybe because of that internal monologue, negative monologue, you do a half-ass effort, you know?
Well, what I like about the book I've been bringing up, if you want to write, is the author. She talks a lot about being truthful in your writing and how if you go back before like publishing was really a thing, people wrote, like she says, men used to write sonnets because that's what they did.
Yeah.
And if you go back to ancient Greece, people didn't write back then because they were making money or with the idea
Well,
of
most
getting
people
published.
couldn't write.
They couldn't, right? Most people couldn't write, but the ones who could, there was something about it. They didn't like write because they were hoping to get published, and they didn't write because they were going to make money off of it.
Maybe they were hoping to seduce the lady fair. Whatever your motives are.
Right, but the motives aren't what we people have motives for today. Like what she's trying to get at is that the art of it, you're not going to write your best work if your focus is on money, or something to that effect.
Or
Because
TikTok or this book talk. I think that yes, books are getting published through these platforms, but I think that's a tricky business. I really do. I think there's something to be said for really developing your craft. And this is coming from an older person, but really developing your craft and writing as the best quality work you can, and then try to find the right home for it. And also this putting something on the market, you could self-publish.
yes,
You don't have to put it out there until someone buys it. You can buy it yourself.
so here's my question. With
Mhm.
traditional publishing, we have gatekeepers. We have people who are saying, no, this is not up to what we expect quality wise.
Yeah.
If you're self publishing, you have to have that hat as well.
Yes.
How does one who is self publishing, and you know the answer, but I'm going to say, like, how, if you're self publishing, how do you make sure you're putting out your best work?
Well, I have gotten so much better with quality control. I thought my work was ready when my first books came out, and then I realize now that they're not formatted right. I've got typos, all these things that I thought because I couldn't really see it, and I've just gotten better at putting out better quality work, which I think is pretty much the trajectory for most writers that are doing this. Derek Murphy has a thing where he says, instead of being precious about that first book, just fail quicker. He says it's like, not that you should put out crap, but if you're putting out a lot of stuff, you'll figure out from the feedback what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, and but honestly, everyone has to come up with their own strategies for doing this, and it's not a one size fits all type of thing.
Yeah, I think I've heard that same thing expressed as fail forward.
Oh, fail forward.
I don't
Okay,
know if
yeah.
that might be also fail quicker, but
Mhm.
yeah, fail forward. If you're self-publishing, you don't have a publishing company there to do all the stuff that they do for you, whatever that
Right.
may be. So you have to make sure that you're doing those things, and you won't know all those things. And that's what fail forward means. You're going to learn as you go, and that's okay, you know?
Yes.
But
Yes. Like
the important
the
thing is to learn.
is to learn
If you're
and to
doing
not.
things and not going back and saying, how could I have done this differently or better? Or what did I learn from this and how can I use that as an opportunity moving forward? Then you're not doing your best work if you don't do those things.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot before about fear being something that really holds people back and in creative work, and I think that's true too in the self-publishing, because I've seen this online on some like YouTube, like booktubers I follow who want to write. They review books, but they talk sometimes about how they want to write, and I always try to be encouraging. But I hear this a lot, but I don't know how to do it. Maybe someone can show me how to do the self-publishing thing, and I think, it's kind of like if you can figure out how to post YouTube videos, you can figure out how to self-publish
You could figure
because
out anything with the internet today.
I know there's really no
There
excuse.
is no
So
excuse.
you can figure it out.
I
And
built a Muppet from just watching
I
videos on
know. Are
YouTube.
you done your Muppet
He's
yet?
not finished. I'm still doing the eyes. I'm trying to figure
Okay.
out the eyes, but he is very, one of them's almost complete, but I'm amazed that when I look at it and play with it, I'm like, wow, this is,
It works?
yeah, it looks good. And I've taught myself how to sew. I never knew how to sew. So
Wow.
not knowing how to publish, I get that, but there is so many things out there to help you with this.
Yes, and I really recommend if you're serious and you're going to put out enough books to make it worthwhile, I seriously recommend a two software, Scrivener, which took me a really long time to get the knack of, and Vellum. I use both of those, and they've made my life so much easier.
And YouTube, there are several tutorials, especially on Scrivener.
Mhm, and we're not sponsoring either
No, we're not
one.
sponsored. I use Scrivener as well, but I've watched YouTube videos, and there's this guy. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll put it in the show notes. But he talks about, all right, the first like 5 minutes is going to probably be all you need. But if you want to go further, you can watch more than that. And it's like he goes into everything, but you really don't need a lot of what Scrivener can do.
No.
And it's amazing what it can do. But the average person doesn't need to even use most of that stuff. But I
Yeah,
like it.
I don't use it probably I have started using like the notes and the scenes more and the character descriptions as I'm working. It's really helpful because then you don't have to go through like a file folder of like, oh, what color were his eyes? I forget.
Yeah. And that's what it was developed for, to have everything in one place. And that's why I like it. You're right. I don't have to go look for photos or my notes app and things. Everything's sitting there in one project.
Yeah, and there have been some platforms that or some software that I won't mention that I tried that didn't work for me. So there are tools out there to help you get started and tons of tutorials and YouTube videos about positive thinking, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's really you just the only person stopping you is probably yourself.
yeah. And you need to develop the habits. If you want a good book, it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's a very
Or
good
maybe
book.
you've mentioned it to me.
Yeah. And it talks about how you can develop habits. And that's what's really the trick to doing this, is that we are creatures of habit. Everything you do, even not writing, has become a habit.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you need to do is reprogram yourself to have things that you want to do become habits. And then you are what you've done. You are what your habits are. And so
Yeah.
this book talks a lot about that. It's a very good book.
I mean, I could probably, with the time I'm saving during Lent, not looking at Facebook and Instagram, I could probably write a few short stories
Yes, you could
using that
write
time.
a few short stories by just like avoiding Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I find myself reading more now and
Good.
not watching TV as much.
Yeah. Well,
Although I
Joe and I
have,
we'll watch TV at night, but then I'm usually, we started watching True Detective, which is very good, the
oh,
new
which one?
one.
The one with Jodie Foster?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, we are watching that, and
Yeah, it's good.
we're not that far in, but it's good. She's great.
I know. And she hasn't acted I haven't seen her in any like acting role in a long time. So it's really fun to
It
see her
is
work.
fun to see her do her job and do it well and be that kind of like, it's a I think a interesting role for her.
It
She's
is. It's a
not very
complex
likable
character. No.
at first. I
And
don't know if she
it's
becomes
very,
likable, but in the beginning it's like, whoa, what did she just say?
yeah. And it's refreshing to see a woman her age with no
Oh my
Botox. Like
God.
you
I
could,
think Sarah and I had said the same thing. Like, she looks so good.
she looks so good, but she's
And she
older. Like
didn't,
you can
yeah, she
tell.
looks like she aged naturally. And that's what
She
looks
aged
so nice
naturally.
about her. Like
I know.
she doesn't have
And
like
it's
Muppet lips and
and there's a shot of her that in the scene we were watching last night where she opens a refrigerator door and the lighting on her face is very harsh and you can really see every line. And I said to Joe, well, you can really see the lines on her face and she doesn't care. Like there's something beautiful. I think a lot of, because she's a producer, a lot of actors would be like, and I'd probably be that way too. It's like, I'm not going to put that lighting on me, but
but
it's
it
wonderful, and
also,
she looks beautiful. She looks like herself.
yes.
I'm tired of seeing these actors, and not just actresses, the men do it too, that don't even look like themselves anymore. Like Nicole Kidman, she was so. I mean, she's
What was
still
that thing she
beautiful, I
was
guess,
just in?
but she just looks so different.
She looks creepy now.
Yeah, she looks
She was
really
in
creepy.
some movie or TV show and she looks scary as hell.
Hmm.
But the thing also is, when it comes to story, there's no way that this detective in this town is going to look like a Hollywood actress, either good or bad. Like,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
a very harsh environment they live in.
yeah,
She
I like the
is,
other actress too very much. She's really good.
yeah, actually, the entire cast is very good. And I'm just saying, though, you're living in this town with this environment, with this history. You're not going to look like you're from Hollywood. And
No,
that's part of storytelling too.
I know, and I was noticing with Jodie Foster, her face, I was just like, her eyes are so stunning. And I just was just appreciating the way she looked. But it was off-putting because we're not used to seeing people's real faces.
Yeah, and
I
we
mean,
should be.
off-putting in a
And we
good
should
way.
be, right.
We should be. And that was what, I mean, I just saw on, not to go off on a tangent, because, I wrote Unmasked, which was all about plastic surgery. But I saw an image just recently of Megan Fox, who is the most beautiful woman ever. And she was like doing, I know you liked her.
Mm-hmm.
She's like doing the big lips, and it's like, no, why? Like, don't destroy the
At the
beauty.
same time, I find it hard I get it. We get it. We're from a different place. I don't know what
Yeah.
it would be like to be Megan Fox, to have
Mhm.
been every male fantasy and then not get any work and living in a town like Hollywood and being surrounded by people who do that
Yeah.
because that's what you need to do to get work. So I'm not judging because I
No, I'm
don't
not
know
judging
that
either.
world. And I can't imagine what it would be like for a woman in that world when that is your main thing, is your looks.
I think it would be, back in the day, there were the grand dames like Betty Davis and Joan Crawford who refused to ever retire, and they became what they became, and then they were great, and they worked as older actresses. But for most female actors, actresses, they're kind of like off the shelf at age 30,
Yes.
and it's like we've seen them come and go over and over. There's always the new girl, and they don't last very long, and it's sad because a lot of them are super
Yeah.
talented, and
A lot of them,
but
there's this
they
thing where, they are want it for everything. And then the scary part is when they start wanting them to be the mom in the show. And then it's like, your career's almost over
yeah,
because
like
you're the young mom. And then after that, there's nothing until possibly you get to play the queen.
right, and then you could be the grande dame when you're like in your 60s. Then you come back.
Right. But you
Like,
don't get that whole part where you're not working. That's where I think this plastic surgery comes in.
yeah, I think you're right. I think that the insecurity, but it doesn't. There are probably some people who have had really good plastic surgery and it's so good we don't know. But in general, I can always tell, and it doesn't really look good. Like now, a lot of these actresses are getting the fat removed under their cheekbones, so they get that chiseled look.
Yeah.
And it like the girl, I forget her name, the blonde who was the flavor of the month. She was in The Witch.
I don't know.
You
I'll tell
you
you
would know who
who,
I'm
to
talking about.
me,
But she got that done, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, she looks really different."
I think Meg Ryan really did it. Nothing good.
Oh, I know.
And Meg
And just
Ryan
think
was like, yes.
how cute she would have still looked.
Yeah. If she didn't touch anything, she would have
Yeah,
looked amazing. Now it's like you can see it though. That's the thing. You can see the fake plastic everywhere.
I
Have you ever
know.
seen Escape from LA, the sequel to Escape from New York?
No. Oh, yeah, you know what? Wait, is Adrienne Barbeau in that? No.
No, she's in the original.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, maybe
But
I don't
if you
think I've
haven't
seen
seen
that.
it, there's this great role that Bruce Campbell plays, and he is like the plastic surgeon of Hollywood in this
Oh, okay. No, I haven't
post-apocalyptic
seen it. I
world.
I would remember
It
this.
is so funny. So I think it's actually, if you have Cinemax, it's on there now, Escape from LA, but check it
Okay.
out. I think it's a fun movie. It's obviously not as good as Escape from New York, but it's fun. And that Bruce Campbell role of being like it's really bizarre, but it's great.
Okay. I know we've totally gone off on a tangent, but
Yeah.
yeah, True
Oh,
Detective is good.
yeah.
I haven't finished it yet, but it's good.
I haven't either, but it is good. So let's just end there and let's just remind everyone to persevere. If you
Mhm.
have something now that you want to send it out, send it out. If it comes back, send it back out. Let us
Including
know.
to bookworms. Send it to us
Yeah, send it to
if it
Bookworms.
fits the
And that we
theme.
didn't talk about that, but if you haven't yet, we're still taking submissions for the rock and roll horror
Yep.
issue. That all the information for you to submit is in the show notes. I'm
Mhm.
really looking forward to that, and
Me
I'm
too.
super excited to see Charlie's artwork for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to
Me
come up with
too.
a comic. I'm trying to think what that will be. Um, but
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
excited for that. It's fun coming up with the themes.
yeah. So let's end for this, and next week,
Yeah, what are we going to talk about next week? We'll have to come up with a new idea.
you know what I want to talk
We
about
ran out
next
of the
week?
rules.
Yeah,
What?
we're out of the rules, but I want to talk about where you can submit your stuff. So I'm going to do a lot of research. Maybe if you want to, if you're a writer, maybe
Okay.
some places that we suggest you can try submitting short stories to. Not really novels, but if we find that, some places will take that. But the idea is, I want to talk, like we have a rule here that you have to write, you have to do all this stuff, and then you have to submit, and you have to keep submitting. Let's talk next week about where you can find places to submit your work.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
I'll do some research.
All right. And we'll see you
Okay.
next week.
All right, it's good talking to you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.